Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, we're going to start this episode keeping things spoiler-free, but I'd just like to say the first 2 episodes of the new season of Game of Thrones have done very well in putting me off of certain types of food. How about you?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't think I'll be eating pie for a while.
Yeah, it's... I wonder if this trend will follow on. It's quite comical while also being equally disgusting. So don't want to, I know what people like with Game of Thrones spoilers. I nearly actually spoiled it for you myself. And so I think we'll just end the conversation there.
Safe move. Yep.
Yes. All right. So we're going to head straight into product perception. And of course, last episode, we announced that I had the iPad Pro on the way, and since then it has arrived and I have been using it. So yes, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. Now, I got the Apple Pencil 2, but I'll leave a review for that in a future episode. I feel like I need to kind of spend a bit more time with it, but in a nutshell, very much loving that. And got the Midnight Blue smart cover. So before I get into the actual iPad Pro itself, Nick was like my, my soundboard, I guess, in regards to all decisions of the way to protect the iPad. And it was actually quite intense. It was like, do you go the sleeve? Do you not? Do you go the cover? Do you have protection for the back? And all these different things to consider. So would you describe this this long process of decision-making as quite intense?
Yeah, definitely. And it was about as yo-yo-y as I can be sometimes on the buy sort of decisions. But I think for accessories, they're such an important part of making the experience like exactly what you want it to be. So, it wouldn't have been worthwhile for you, for example, to have never gotten the Apple Pencil. So they're such an integral part, even though they're not the main device, that it's important that you sort of get that decision right.
Yeah, I'll get in a little bit later into how it actually fits in with my workflow, but yeah, let's just say that the Apple Pencil is definitely key to that. So, switching back to the smart cover, I do feel like it was the right decision for myself. Still maintain that certain level of slimness. I can definitely see the advantages of having the smart keyboard, but for the use cases that I need it for, I couldn't quite justify it. So, and basically it came down to between the smart cover or the sleeve was that I just kept thinking back to, okay, well, if I'm not going to carry around my 12 South Park slope with me, of course, and so if I ever just wanted to prop it up, I wouldn't be able to do that with the sleeve. So that was basically the deciding factor there. And of course, the pencil's just carried in my bag. But if you are someone that would carry around just the iPad Pro and the pencil, then the sleeve would definitely be a goer there. And I did post it on our social channels, a little bit of a hack per se, to actually use the smart cover to get the 10.5-inch iPad Pro to work with the Park Slope. So that's a bit of a win-win there.
Yeah, I think the other thing there is that it's important to note that if buyers, have the option of getting more than one of these sort of accessories, the cover accessories like the cover and the sleeve, or the keyboard and the sleeve, they actually do work together. So you don't have to worry about that. You need to choose one if you're not price dependent. Which obviously, you don't want to spend like $500 on getting that, just the cover right. But, for example, I need the keyboard more often than I ever thought I would. But I also need a safe place for my Apple Pencil. So I would probably go down that route, when I could.
Yeah, something that's a bit ferry resistant, I guess.
Yep.
I definitely agree with you there. And it's good that there have been tech reviewers online that have actually showed all the different types of covers that can still actually they actually show the fact that the iPad plus the cover or plus the keyboard still fits in the sleeve. So multiple accessories. As Nick said, if you're not, if price isn't so much of a worry, then that's definitely an option you can go down. So I'm going to start off with the design. Now, the slimmer bezels are fantastic. Of course, we spoke, in months prior, especially particularly early in the year, about this supposed bezel-less iPad. But yeah, the more that I'm far more concerned with having a bezel-less iPhone, because the iPad is so much larger, and that having a screen to the edge would be cool, but it still looks exceptional, especially the slimmer bezels at the side. I'm really loving the size and the look of this. So I went with space grey, and that's great because it actually matches the space grey on the MacBook Pro as well. So there isn't, as Nick has pointed out, there have been different shades of space grey along the way, but those two match, which is cool. Now, the iPad Air 2 design is great, but immediately side by side, it made the Air 2 bezels look massive, like unnecessarily big, even though prior to having the 10.5 inch, they weren't even an issue. And I was like, oh, this is a nice sleek design. But as soon as you've grown used to having that, using that 10.5 for a bit, as always with any tech products, but particularly Apple products, you use the new thing for a while, and then it makes the old thing just not so much seem inferior, just I guess look outdated. And the camera bump for me isn't an issue. I think if the camera bump was in the design of the iPhone 7, that would be cooler, with the actual aluminium itself kind of molding its way around it. But it still looks good. I know someone else who had actually taken the same sort of Optus deal that I did, and he was straight away, I was like, oh, this camera bump is massive. And I don't know, you've seen them in real life. This camera being different. So did something like the camera bump just jump out at you, or you kind of just, it's not really an issue?
It's really not an issue for me because, it's not like it practically affects you in any way, especially on the larger device. Like, if you're holding it, you don't have to hold it over the camera bump. You don't really ever see it. You're looking at the other side of the device 99% of the time. So, and I guess this is one of those things where it's just physics. Like, if you want a good camera, realistically, it needs the lenses and the depth in those lenses to achieve that effect. And so, yeah, it's optimized between like having a nice thin lightweight device, with decent battery life and a good camera. And so, yeah, I think I even prefer the bump over the completely flush look. Like, I have the 9.7 and I also have the 12.9 at home, and the 12.9, maybe it's just because it's also a smaller lens, but the actual lens doesn't look as nice, even though it's flash. So yeah, I don't really mind them.
I think the advantage is that the larger the device, the less of an issue the camera bump is. I mean, I know so many people point out camera bumps on phones because of the slight rock that you might get when you place it, flat down. But I think, particularly with the 12.9, it would be so minor. But yeah, not an issue for me there with the camera bump. The weight is absolutely bang on, I reckon. It's not too light to feel fragile or cheap, and it's certainly not too heavy, so they've really nailed that there. Now, to me, ultimately, from the design perspective, the slim form factor and the performance, the Geekbench scores and everything, it just absolutely boggles my mind as to how they achieved that. And I know that, for many people it's just going to go over their heads, but when you think that this is comparable to the MacBook and in some areas the MacBook Pro, it's just insane. It's just an absolute massive achievement in technology and design, I reckon.
Yeah, it's an absolute beast. So I've been playing around with, I saw on Twitter someone posting like, basically you generate a random number and then format that number as a string and do that over and over. And so you can test the difference between that and some MacBook Pros, and the 10.5 inches faster. So I've been trying to replicate that same test on my 9.7 compared to my MacBook Pro. So hopefully I'll have some results on that at some point in the future. But yeah, what they're able to do with iPad hardware has been insane in the past 2-3 years.
I definitely agree there. And coming to the actual screen size itself, I feel like that the 10.5, it just feels so perfect. Like the 9.7 inch doesn't seem too small by any way, but just that little increase, I guess it's brought it closer to an actual A4 size piece of paper, which is what I originally kind of thought the iPad was going to be. And now with this being the actual first, by this becoming the standard for the iPad Pro line, it's just a really great handleable size. Like just working with it with drawing and everything, it just feels so natural. And I originally thought that, okay, the 12.9 is definitely going to be the way I'd want to go, because more, drawing screen real estate. But just I found myself like etching out images and having to kind of like just move the iPad around like I would drawing on a piece of paper. And just that size itself, I feel like it's absolutely nailed it. 12.9 would have been cool, but I certainly don't regret the decision with the size there. And so that ultimately leads me to the question, are you still leaning towards the 12.9, assuming you get one come iOS 11?
Well, it's a great question, one that I think I was thinking about just before we started recording. And usually when I get new iPads, I sell the previous iPads or give them to family or something like that. And I don't think that I'll be in that position this time around. And so depending on whether I just get one new iPad or one each for each of us, I would think that if I just get one, either way, I'll get the 10.5, but I would think that if I get two, then I'll use our old 12.9 inch for work purposes. So I'll just probably leave that at the office and use that for like note taking and sort of working, and then just have the 10.5 for like when I'm on the train or at home. And so getting that full screen real estate where I don't actually have to handle the device, and I'm pretty much just using it in a keyboard and then using the 10.5. So I'll get the 10.5, but hopefully have the use of our old 12.9 inch.
Well, that's certainly good to hear that you kind of created these, scenario of the actual use cases that you have in your mind. Of course, as always, I expect that you probably may change your mind between now and then, but it's good to have some sort of idea. And so moving on to the actual display itself, of which, yes, the original 12.9 doesn't have, is True Tone display. So I was almost kind of listing off these things I was noticing as I was opening it, like to you, just sending them over iMessage. And straight away I was like, man, True Tone is amazing. Like, to me, it's an absolute godsend. I just opened it up and I was inside my house, so the screen was automatically that little bit warmer. And it just looked... I compared it to, even the MacBook Pro itself. Okay, MacBook Pro has night shift, but doesn't have True Tone. So straight away I could see just how that iPad display looked that little bit more fitting to the environment and easy on the eye. And I just thought that was amazing, that you don't even have to think about it. You can just walk into whatever space you are, whether it's outside or in the office under certain lights. You get kind of maybe some offices have a bit of a blue light emitting, and that will kind of suit that environment. It's something that so many people would either just not really care about or not even realize it's going on if they did have an iPad Pro.
Yeah.
But for me, because I knew it was there as well, I was just like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I hope when it comes to True Tone is that people do turn it on in the beginning. I've noticed a lot of people setting up devices that automatically say no to whatever feature just because they're absolutely ridiculous. Just say no to whatever. And I really hope that True Tone is not one of them, because it's something that if you set up once, you never have to worry about again, unless you really have to worry about color accuracy, which I'm assuming much of the market wouldn't, and the bit of the market that would kind of know what's going on there. So I just hope that people are like Apple employees are setting up devices for the people that buy them and just turning this feature on without asking, because it's, as you say, it's so easy on the eyes. It just makes the display so easy to read, and it's just perfect. It really changes the display game.
Oh, definitely. And tied in with that, we have the wide color gamut, of course. And I did some side-by-side comparisons of images between that and the MacBook Pro, and definitely it's good to know that they both cover that wide color gamut, and it just looks great on both devices.
Were you able to compare it to the Air 2 in like any images you expected to have a wider color gamut or need one?
There's still more of like I've certainly been using it. I've spent time with it. I haven't spent as much as I've wanted to so far, but something like that would definitely be on the list to compare.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the killer feature for me was ProMotion. Straight away, I think if you're showing anyone, particularly someone that's interested in more professional use cases than that, it's the feature to show off. Now, I don't think it's quite to the difference level of non-retina versus retina, but it's certainly noticeable. I definitely was switching back between the previous iPad and this one, and I could certainly see the difference showing people at work, and they were just like, man, it looks like your finger is stuck to the screen. It's just, there's something, I guess, magical about it, and it just makes everything feel real fast. And of course the iPad is powerful anyway, but it makes everything really snappy too. And just knowing that whatever video content I play is going to be played in its true form. Because I was in Harvey Norman the other day, and I was waiting to pick up a TV for work purposes. And I was just looking at some of the TVs around, and some of them had that picture smoothing on. I was like, man, it looks horrible. Like, it's clearly a movie that's not meant to be shown at whatever frame rate it's adjusting it to. And the whole thing looked like it was this awkwardly fast forward, and everything looked worse. And just knowing that the iPad Pro is going to play whatever video content in its true form, you're not going to come across that issue.
Yeah.
And that to me is amazing.
There's really smart handling of the way that it works, and they've sort of got that out in the previous generation. Obviously not with the 120 hertz refresh rate, but that intelligent frame rate switching is something they've been putting out in the market, I guess, just quietly. Like, they did highlight it in the product video for the 12.9 inch, but it's something that is already there that they've just taken to the next level.
Definitely. Yeah. And speaking of next level, of course, the performance that's we previously mentioned, great Geekbench results there. In real actual use case, it just doesn't skip a beat. I've never had a moment where it's kind of stuttered or struggled to open any app or anything. Like using Affinity Pro, which is certainly going to be more of a resource-intensive app. It's essentially like Photoshop on the iPad. In some cases, it just runs quicker than Photoshop on my MacBook Pro, and that's saying something. And I certainly want to try out more in this space to kind of push the iPad, particularly, say, with video editing, 4K video editing. Test some of that out. That's really going to kind of be more towards the top end. And I'd love to actually try it out for even just the podcast recording and editing. So, if I could get myself set up for the next episode using that, then that'd be a good test. But I guess in summary, kind of like what you're saying, if you already have the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, it may be hard to decide to upgrade. I feel like you'd have to be, I don't know, just really want the very latest to upgrade, because of course iOS 11 is going to be coming to your 9.7-inch iPad Pro. But for me, coming from Air 2 to this one, it's a much bigger leap. Certainly much more reason to do it. Ultimately, as you point out in your article, iOS 11 is going to be the key to knowing if it's a laptop replacement. But for me, I'm not looking for it to be that. I've managed to fit it in my workflow kind of for, I guess I've decided like designated tasks like image editing, drawing, definitely. That's a big one. Just quick code editing. And of course, if you're just doing casual browsing, and even I want to try out a bit more of GarageBand there for music creation. And I'm very keen to take it to like my next meeting for note taking. That'd be great, because typically I've just sort of typed it in notes on my phone. And I feel like that there are certain tasks like graphic design layout and typographic design that are still very much easier on MacBook Pro. I would have to explore more apps on iPad to support this. So that's kind of like where it's sitting for me. But with you, where does the iPad Pro sit as a laptop replacement?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because I guess ultimately because I code and fundamentally iOS apps can't execute code directly, I can never really have one for work. Having said that, I don't actually need a laptop at home that I use for work all that much. I have a work laptop that I can use for that. So when I say as like a laptop replacement, I don't mean for my actual day-to-day work. Having said that, there are a lot of daily tasks that I could get away with not using my laptop, and I'm already pretty much iPad only. I guess for me, the only thing would be to sell my computer and then really be iPad only, because effectively, other than for my real job, I don't really use my MacBook. So it's kind of a ready one for me.
Okay. So we've kind of like, you're already halfway in there, and basically out of the two of us, I'm the designated one holding the torch for the MacBooks. From here on in, I guess.
I see a lot of benefit for me personally in something like the iMac Pro. But obviously the price is like, I just cannot get an iMac Pro, but there's not to say there's no desire for a computer for me, but everything that I would use a laptop for and am capable of using a laptop for can be replaced by my by my iPad Pro. You know, like, I do a lot of admin-y stuff that is so much easier on the iPad. Signing documents, scanning documents, sending those, like using iOS 11 now. If I have to send off like multiple files at once from different sources and all stored in iCloud Drive or wherever, I can just go grab them, drag them across, go to a new app, grab some more and put them all where they need to be. And tags have become more useful because of iOS 11, just like naturally dragging in and having that tag system on iOS 2, because I felt like I haven't really had to tag because they're not supported by iOS or weren't supported by iOS in a deep way. So now that that's solved, like, it's just so much more productive.
Oh, I'm so keen for iOS 11. When I'm waiting until the final rolls out.
You have to.
But I just all the stuff that they've. I mean, there's so much I just want to try out. But when you're specifically talking about like document scanning and the fact that they've kind of like used ARKit to create document scanning from a distance, that's just amazing.
I used that
can't
today.
Wait to do that.
So, in the meeting, we had to share notes, and like, while, you know, they hadn't even really gotten to discussing the slides yet, and I'd already scanned all of them in notes. They're all set up, can annotate on the actual document and in notes seamlessly by just tapping on the screen with Apple Pencil. And, you know, it was absolutely seamless, while the person next to me hadn't really even gotten to the notes yet. I already had them digital, gave them their copy, and I was sorted, and I have them all for, you know, for the future. So, and scan like text searchable. So it's just become so much more powerful.
You should have just like looked at them like side look at me like, oh really? Sorry.
I did try to convince them afterwards that it's such a much better workflow, but it will be a battle.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to switch around to something else new. I got my hands on the Obsidian /Black Nike Sport Band. So, yes, this is my first watch band aside from the one that came with it. Now, of course, being the Nike Sport Band, it has the same perforated design. But before I kind of talk about what I think of it, out of all your band options, which one do you wear the most?
That is a very tight question, because which one I wear the most and which one I prefer are two separate things. So 4 days of the week I wear the sort of black nylon band. Keep in mind that I have the space gray Nike Plus watch, so I wear that for that sort of like more professional look. It just has like rather than the sort of rubbery look. So I wear that 4 days of the week, and then on casual Fridays and the weekends, I wear the black and cool grey Nike Sport Band.
Okay, cool. Literally. But yeah, for me, this is basically, it's what I love about it the most is it matches the space grey and midnight blue of the iPad Pro. So of course my watch is space grey, and then this, it's called Obsidian, but it's essentially midnight blue. What I love the most about it, which I thought I would, is the breathability is great. I've noticed there's definitely less sweat underneath after a workout walk. And also what I like is because it's that much darker colour, it does work well for me in both workplace and casually. And the underside of it is mostly black, as is the actual pin. And of course it contains the Nike logo as well. So you kind of like, I was giving you my feedback on this, and you came up essentially with an idea of how they could unlock faces depending on what band you've got.
Yeah, so I might have mentioned this before in the context of Hermes bands, but basically from when they launched the Hermes bands, I've thought that they, especially with those ones, and then obviously now with the Nike ones, when you're spending that amount of money to get that unique band, and when you buy the watch with that band, it has the watch face like the Hermes or the Nike ones. I thought that it would be cool if they linked your purchase to your Apple ID and just unlocked the faces for you just based on your iCloud account. We know obviously that they can do that. It would just be a matter of turning on that switch. So it would be really cool, because now that you've spent the same amount of money on the watch as I would have, for example, but now you don't have it. It's just kind of, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think particularly with Hermes, even more so, just because of the price of those bands. But I love the idea, because originally we'll think about, okay, is there something actually in the band that, you know, as soon as you like lock it into the watch, it senses it's there, etc. And it's just so much easier to have it kind of automated based on the Apple ID and your purchase. So
yeah, maybe they'll partner with Nintendo and make it Amiibo that you place on your watch.
Dude, Nintendo bands, freaking shut up and take all my money. Seriously, like,
with a little Pokeball watch face.
I'm like, kind of like staring around in awe at the moment, just picturing.
I might have to bring you back. I might have to bring you back down to it.
Yeah. Oh wow, that'd be not so much. I mean, Pokemon's cool, but oh man, if I had like a Mario one and a Zelda one, yeah. Yeah, no, it's got to happen. It has to. Like, suggestions, Apple suggestions.
You can
straight off this,
join the suggestions box.
Oh, dude, that'd be great, because they've already got the tie-in. I mean, and they're pushing out obviously more and more with the Disney tie-in. So, oh yeah, this would be good. Okay, anyway, sorry, I'm back. Okay, so a bit of a little bit of a deviation there, but we're going to bring it back with Rumour Mill. Now, there's been some talk of Apple working on electric car batteries. So how'd they arrive here?
Yeah, so they are partnering with Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited, which is China's largest automotive battery manufacturer. And they've been working with Apple on confidential battery-related project. I think for me, I just want to sort of look at this and say, why is Apple looking at battery stuff, even if it is around cars? It's no secret that batteries have been underdeveloped in the past 5 to 10 years. They've sort of reached a peak in what they can do, and so there's a huge demand for better battery technology. So it's good to see them investing in it in at least some way. So when you look at the size of the batteries compared to what the iPhone batteries would be, obviously it's a completely different ball game, but I'd just like to see them investing in the battery technology.
Yeah, and so just as a bit of a comparison, it's been pointed out that, okay, say take one of your most popular electric cars being a Tesla, so take a Tesla Model S battery, and that equals the demand of 4,000 iPhone batteries. So this is certainly not some kind of small fry situation. And I guess from this, can we think that they're going to go towards their own entire electric car, when for a while there it was looking like they were just working on a self-driving system, which is still, to me, what I feel like they're going to do with the whole, Project Titan, supposedly. I mean, who knows what's happening with Project Titan, but what are your thoughts on this? Are you still kind of quietly confident they might put out their entire own car, say partnered with an existing manufacturer?
I think they might. I don't know, because if you look at historically when Apple's partnered with someone to release an end product that has Apple's logo on it, it hasn't always been successful when Apple's not the manufacturer and the main driving force. So for example, I'm looking
Motorola.
at the Rocker, the Motorola Rocker sort of that sort of vibe, but it doesn't always gel that well. And when we think of a self-driving system, what we think of that encapsulating right now would just be the software side. And yet if there was some sort of optimization that we can't think of or tie in around the hardware and software in a tighter way that still doesn't have them manufacturing the stuff, or putting their brand on the whole car, I can see it being more than just the heads, like the head-up unit or the front unit of a car. I don't just see that as their system that they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm still thinking that regardless of whether they're involved with more than just the self-driving system or not, I've always just for some reason pictured in my head some of the European car brands with a tie-in, like a BMW, Apple, something, just that stuff that the cars that are already higher end. I mean, this is a real hard one because obviously car affordability just ranges so much. It's so much, it's out of reach of so many more people than compared to the costs you put towards devices. So that, I guess maybe if they did, it'd be multiple partnerships. Could they do like a Toyota for one of them and for more your general mid-tier car?
I would see that as going so badly wrong that it wouldn't even be worthwhile them getting into it, because I don't see the profit motivator there. I see the motivator in CarPlay.
Motivator.
Yeah. I totally meant that one, pun intended.
Yes.
Yeah. I see it being useful in CarPlay, and that was an obvious play for them, is like making this ecosystem, but without relying on like someone else too much. Because if you look at like HomeKit, where they do rely on it more, it's a lot more constrained on what products end up coming through. And so
yeah,
I think a car would be like the ultimate goal for them to get, but not as a mass market consumer electronics company. So it would be interesting to see that if they go down that road, how do they go down that road?
So many puns in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still leaning towards the self-driving system, like much the way that you have CarPlay support rolling out in all sorts of car brands. It's going to be something that's primarily software-based.
Yeah.
So,
but I wonder if they would spin that off.
See.
I wonder if they might spin that off out into its own company, Waymo style, or yeah, maybe not, given the high value of the Apple brand. Anyway, we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess only Tim knows.
Yeah, well, as I say, it's going to be Christmas for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Christmas Eve for a long time.
Christmas Eve, that's it. Yes, yes. Correction.
I wish it was Christmas for a long time. New iPads every day.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But speaking of something newer than Christmas, August, next month, very soon, potentially, an iPhone SE update. Now, this came from a report from iGeneration, which I've come to realize have actually been relatively accurate, but it's more the fact that they don't come out with reports as often as, say, your KGIs and that sort of thing. And the fact that it's kind of like this singular report, I think there may be a couple backing it up, basically stating that Apple are going to debut a new SE at an August event. So, I mean, the SE was first released in March 2016, so it's been a while. Now, their report states that it will be even cheaper. I would think it would be great if they did a spec bump. Maybe whether they retain the same price or went cheaper, don't know. But I'd expect if they did hold any sort of event, it would be online only, like the 9.7-inch flat-out fun iPad and the red iPhone. So do you take much from this report? Like, it's a bit out of the blue, but we have been talking about an SE update for a while.
Yeah, there's obvious demand for an SE update. I just wonder how long Apple continues to serve this specific segment, because it's kind of, on the software side, evident that they don't really optimize for this anymore. So I would be interested to see if they do come out with one, what are the new features? What is the selling point of this one that made them actually make a new one? And to me, faster, better camera, stuff like that doesn't really add up for me. Something like 3D touch would, where they bring it like into use case parity with the newer devices. That would make sense to me, just a small update. But then, how special is special edition if you have like special edition 2? It just, it's not really SE anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if they did do an update, I don't imagine any change in the name. It'll just be like, this is just the updated version. And I'm thinking they'd take internals from the iPhone 7. Maybe not all of its specs, but at least some of it, because currently the SE has like essentially 6S.
Yeah.
Level specs in it, bar 3D touch. So add 3D touch and kind of beef it up in some areas, improve the camera, and I would expect the form factor to be the same.
Yeah. I would be interested on the colors to see if they did update them, but I'll take a stab and say no.
Yeah, I mean, they've already got the 4 options anyway, so yeah. I mean, I still think I would like them to continue it. It still serves a purpose, as we said, that older demographic that aren't concerned with larger screens and they want something definitively pocket-sized, like, fit in your tight jean pocket-sized.
I want to see them move towards... I'm happy for them to continue with that model. We spoke a bit in our predictions episode about differentiating between their pro segment and their sort of cheaper market. Well, like, still good products, but just being able to sell those in a higher quantity because people are caring less and less about absolutely brand new features and feeling like they need to upgrade all the time. So I'm happy for them to do that and try and get that price lower to further differentiate that from the guys that really want the new latest and greatest sort of iPhone 8 or whatever it's going to be called. And I know there will be the 7S and 7S Plus to further have serve different segments of the market. But overall, I like that strategy more broadly than just in the iPhone.
Yeah, that's definitely agree there. But we're going to move on to something that we've been talking about lately. And so we're going to put this in the water cooler segment, and that is machine learning. So we've previously mentioned how Apple have always behind the scenes been doing a lot with machine learning, a lot more than they've spoken about. They've almost been forced to start talking about it a bit more because media perceive them as being far behind Google. Whereas, I mean, yeah, as we said, they were doing machine learning before machine learning was even a term. So they've created essentially a journal or a web blog dedicated to this. It's only just been launched. What's this actually about?
Yeah, so basically it gives a platform for Apple machine learning engineers to talk about this kind of work that they've been doing, and more broadly is actually just a selling point for Apple to get new engineering talent on board. So when it comes to, as you said, not just the media covering what products like Google and them are working on, it's very evident that they are working on machine learning. And so if you look at the media, it's not so evident about Apple, and you might not know what kind of things you're working on. Like maybe you would only say, I don't want to work just on Siri, but there's a whole lot more to it, and there's a whole lot more to it that Apple's doing. So they're obviously using this platform to get new engineering talent on board and just give because it's kind of like overlaps a lot with the open source world and sort of people wanting to publish their work. And so if their employers restrict that possibility, it's also not attractive for them to want to move into that employer. So basically what this allows is to address those two issues. So the blog posts are obviously at a technical level, and they're not just going to be for anyone. It's kind of someone who has to be already interested in machine learning. And they invite some feedback and questions, which is quite cool. So I would be interested to see if I have any sort of feedback or questions and follow that down the line later on. But I'll just cover a little bit about their first post in a very general sort of way, and so as not to like bore people. But essentially, one of the challenges in machine learning is collecting the data. So obviously, we hear the term big data thrown around quite a lot, but a lot of machine learning is classification. So saying like, this is a cat, this is or hot dog and not hot dog, and that sort of thing. But that involves having like, thousands of images or millions of images that are classified as that for the computer to best be able to differentiate between them, right? So that classification often has to be hard coded. So someone would go in and say, I'm going to search the web for all pictures of hot dogs and like sort of check them at a high level to make sure they're all hot dogs, right? Which is expensive and onerous and so not ideal. So essentially one of the ways to trick your training algorithm, the way the computer sees it, is to slightly edit photos that you already have. So you can rotate them, you can mirror them, change like colors slightly. And so that's what Apple's exploring in this post is it's titled Improving the Realism of Synthetic Images. And synthetic images basically just means you've edited something that you already know the classification of. So as not to change the classification, but just to sort of like, alter it slightly so that it doesn't only think that, cats have to be with their legs on the ground for it to be a cat. You know what I mean? So it's kind of follows that path of how to optimize using smaller data sets in an accurate way. So it's pretty interesting and definitely something that I've been exposed to as being quite a useful technique. So it is quite good.
I'm glad someone like yourself was there to kind of like decipher it in a nutshell style. So, I did take a brief look at it. I definitely want to properly read through it, but I love the fact that they've gone out of their way to bring focus to machine learning, and this is something that's definitely very legitimate. This isn't just like we're just going to slap some stuff online just to shut the media up. This is stuff of in-depth detail, very much obviously of big interest to people like yourself who are involved in machine learning. And for me, if someone like myself that, okay, I've definitely done my, across the years done a lot with web coding and all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of like, it's semi-relative to me. I don't obviously do machine learning as a profession or anything, but it's good that they're putting their name out there. It's an official thing, and I definitely it's kind of looking like monthly posts at the moment, and I'm definitely keen to see kind of what else they're going to be talking about, and I see it as like an educational tool without having to like properly delve into machine learning itself. Yeah.
So for me, one of the big things that I'll be looking for is to look for techniques that they're using, and for tools that they're using. So like a lot of the battle or the, challenges are finding the right tools for the right tasks and sort of getting your employer to agree to using those tools. So for me, I have like huge interest in what Apple uses for their, to essentially train Siri or whatever their machine learning thing is. It's quite interesting. So yeah, I'm very keen to keep up to date with this blog.
Okay, so we're going to switch over to Deal Down Under. Now, this one is quite frustrating. Apple are basically either planning to meet or have already met. I haven't actually seen the evidence of it yet, with Australia's Attorney General George Brandis. Now, of course, he's from the current government, the Turnbull's Liberal National Party government, and they've proposed a law to compel tech companies to give access to encrypted messages for police and intelligence agencies. So, of course, basically they want to take messages over Apple's platforms, say of suspected terrorists and criminals, and they want full access to it. So they essentially want to do what was similar to the San Bernardino FBI case, where they're just like, okay, can you just turn off encryption? Yeah, whatever. We want to get the details. Of course, it's never as simple as that, and they don't realize the magnitude of this request. Apple can't simply turn it off. It's going to compromise the privacy of all users. This is literally just like a repeat of what happened, as I said, with the FBI thing. And the Australian government said if they don't get cooperation, they're going to apply coercive power. So very much a kind of like a threat there. Now, their actual law itself is modelled on UK's Investigatory Powers Act. Now, apparently there has been no clash so far with Apple and the UK government yet, but it's looking like we expect there very well could be. So do you see this as like a form of bullying, or just not the government understanding how the tech works?
I kind of see it as both. I think that they don't understand how it works, or don't want to understand how it works, and are kind of just bullying them anyway into what they think they'll be able to open up the platform for, like, back-end sort of look in, which I just find it absolutely crazy. You just kind of want someone with common sense there to go, what are the benefits of forcing the company to do this? What are the cons? Like, look at the huge cons on it and just sort of realize what it actually means. It's just frustrating, really. It kind of, to me, governments can often play on easy targets for looking good in the population's eyes, rather than doing things that they actually believe are useful and helpful. And I think that this is a case, and I would say, I have no sort of like political affiliation here, so it actually has nothing to do with it, like Turnbull's government. It's just a case of, I have a problem with picking on the easy things, whether you believe they're right or wrong. It's just like, yeah.
No, I definitely agree there. I think the common frustration, as I said, I'm not going to delve into particular sides or anything here, but the common frustration with people of our generation that are essentially much more tech savvy and involved in it is that you have these people of older generations, these high level politicians and in the government that are trying to call the shots and make decisions for things, and they just don't quite understand how it works. I mean, of course, we've got, well, what's happening with the NBN and everything, okay, let's try to do it cheaper, but okay, of course, no, that's completely blown up, and now you've got so many angry potential NBN customers out there, and people are waiting for this thing to roll out, and this is, to me, like the same sort of thing. It's just kind of like, well, okay, you're taking essentially the current political sway, I guess, in terms of, okay, of course, everything that's all over the news over the past few years has been terrorism related, and okay, we're going to use that as our tool to get this across the line. And it's that you don't exactly, I just feel like yelling at them, you don't exactly understand, okay, yes, that's all well and good, you want to protect the country, but there's so much more at stake. You can't just turn off the encryption like that.
Yeah,
so,
don't get me wrong. I absolutely agree with, protecting the country. I just don't think of switching. I just don't think switching off encryption for 99.99% of law-abiding citizens and the potential risk that involves is kind of worth it. It's up to, I guess, Apple to fight and improve a case, and laws will be laws, but it's just, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And as you say, they just don't really understand the technology. And I think encryption is something that I don't fully understand. I get how it works, but I could definitely not explain all the cons of not having something encrypted. And so I just think that it's something so complex that they really should have experts on it.
Yes, yep, definitely. But we're going to switch it over to something much more fun. The Rock, Time Siri, Dominate the Day. A 3-minute and 46-second short film, essentially ad, was released. Of course, we saw a poster teased about it the day before its release. Now, before we kind of talk about what we like about this short film of sorts, you were kind of laughing at the web and web media's reaction to this when the trailer was the poster was first released.
Oh man, they went crazy. I absolutely loved how they got so badly trolled by The Rock and potentially Apple, because the Twitter blew up about this poster. You know, all we want is a better Siri, and you give us an ad, and I can't believe it. Steve Jobs would never do this. Like, you know, people went absolutely nuts about this, and every single Apple following blog and website had it up within seconds. You know, film. There's a full-on film with The Rock. They thought this was like a proper full-length movie, like Her or something. And meanwhile, it's just an ad. And they got so badly trolled. It's just hilarious.
I think the best thing I like about this is, okay, The Rock is in, obviously, many movies that have a comedic edge to it. He's definitely someone that doesn't take himself too seriously, likes to have fun. And this is perfectly demonstrated in this advert. It's it's basically just, the essence of the ad is just The Rock and using Hey Siri to just excel at absolutely everything he's doing, and he's essentially taking on all forms of challenges. Even goes out of space. I don't want to kind of ruin it for too many people, but we'll of course link to the ad itself. But I definitely watched it a few times. So what about yourself?
Yeah, I've watched it 2 times, and I'll just spoiler or no spoiler, I'll say that my favorite part of the ad is The Rock's wallpaper. It's a younger version of The Rock.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I'm tempted to put that as my wallpaper now. It's just absolutely hilarious.
It's so funny though, because current Rock makes young Rock look really skinny, even though he was like buff back then. It's just
yeah.
It's I love these sort of surprises. Apple we've obviously covered a lot of their adverts, particularly this year, and they're constantly changing the game, and this certainly is itself. And I can't really say much apart from check it out yourself. And, you know, obviously it's a bit of fun. It's well produced. And it actually does demonstrate Siri's use quite well. I actually completely forgot that you could get Siri to start up a selfie for you. I tried that directly after the advert because I completely forgot that was even possible.
Yeah, I actually forgot that one too. So, yep, I really enjoyed it. It was funny. So, Jeff, definitely check it out.
I think just real quickly, one of my funniest bits about that was when one of the subtitles, when I think he's in the restaurant with the chef, and he's like, "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" Oh, yeah. It's so good. That was my favorite bit. I was like, because so many times when we were younger, we'd have like my mates at a Foxtel on, he'd have, you know, the wrestling. And it's got like, "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" And I just, when I saw that, that was the pinnacle for me. So
yeah, no, it was great.
Okay, so I'm just going to drop some quick impressions on Affinity Photos. So as you mentioned before, this is essentially what Photoshop should be for the iPad. It was Affinity as debuted at WWDC, finally came out for iPad, works very well, and it's actually created by one of the original creators of Photoshop. So just going to run off some pros. It's fast, as promised, as the demo on WWDC runs very well. Of course, for me, mainly use Apple Pencil with it. The pencil accuracy is great. It's awesome, just even little things like all the menus around the edge of the screen, they auto hide themselves when you draw the pencil towards the edge of the screen. The file, all the different types of files you can import into it, and your export options are awesome. So as I said, this isn't actually Photoshop, but you can import and export Photoshop files. Its RAW support is great. It makes etching fun. Again, I've had to cut out many pictures of machinery for the past few years, and it can become tiresome work, particularly using a mouse, and pull out the Apple Pencil, and it's just so much smoother, and you can actually get things done quicker. And even removing objects which you want to know about, Nick, that works. It's fast. It's impressive using stuff like clone stamp and healing and everything. But unfortunately, I have discovered some cons. I didn't think it would be a complete desktop experience, in the sense that its support for type is a bit limited because you can't use your own fonts. I didn't think you would be able to unless you... If it gave, because it's not an Adobe product, it doesn't let you lock into Adobe Typekit. That would be cool if they could gain that support there. Switching between the menus could become a little bit tiresome. So like your selection menu is different than your primary menu with all your clone tools and brushes and everything. So if you could merge the two, so much more to discover about this. That may even be possible. And unfortunately, I did import a Photoshop file into it, and the existing type layers weren't editable. It just imported them as like a graphic. So that part was a little bit disappointing. But ultimately, the fact that it isn't actually Photoshop itself and it has that level of support is great. It is $30. I feel like it's definitely worth it. Adobe shot themselves in the foot by trying to not continue with releasing a actual version of Photoshop for iPad. They did in the early days. It was clunky. They killed that, split it into 3 apps. One of them, which is great, all about sketching, and the other 2, which are just like useful, but not exactly what I need. Having to switch between 3 apps, it just destroys the workflow versus Affinity Photo. And of course, they're going to be coming out with their other program, Affinity Designer, soon, coming for iPad. So I'm definitely going to jump onto that.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'll just, I'll probably end up checking it out at one point, but definitely not to the level that you're able to use it. But it definitely sounds good, and I'm happy to hear like such a good pro case for using the iPad.
Yeah.
So I'll just cover a Clips update quickly. So we learned last week that Apple has had 1 million monthly unique users, which I don't know quite know the difference between monthly active and monthly unique, but 1 million users per month. Following on from the WatchOS tie-in with Disney, they added graphics from Mickey and Minnie from Disney, and then Toy Story and Inside Out from Pixar. So I've just checked out the Mickey's little hand, but yeah, that was pretty cool. It's like points in this animated way, which I didn't realize until I'd already exported the video. And then they have 12 new animated posters, which are Apple designed, live title edit button, which I used, which was great for faster editing because it doesn't often understand my accent, and sometimes you want to continue with the video and not have to worry about the text there. So that was good. And then I didn't have to reinstall it, but because I have had it installed from the beginning, I didn't delete it, so it was... I used it after the update, and I don't think I'll be using it very often, but it's worthwhile keeping on my phone.
I wanted to keep it from the start. I wasn't using it. There are too many apps that cover this type of stuff for me already. I really wanted it to be great, but I feel like it's, as pointed out, if they enhanced iMessage with it, with like live titles, etc., and then enhanced iMovie with some more of these features, that to me I'd get far more use out of. But the fact that they didn't just leave it to die and they actually gave it an update, we'd essentially written it off thinking it was going to be the music memos, but funnily enough, it is coming pre-installed with new devices.
I didn't realize that. So you got it on your iPad Pro?
iPad Pro, yeah, it was there, and I was just like, delete. Like, I didn't even...
So you deleted that before Photo Booth?
Well, I couldn't delete Photo Booth. Don't have iOS 11 beta.
Oh, yes, right. Okay, so
yeah. It's so funny. I deleted it. I was like, I'll just delete Photo Booth. Oh, wait.
Not on the beta. Yeah, you better get... Well, I don't know if you will get on that, but I definitely got on that as soon as... I think the only reason I run the iOS 11 beta is to be able to delete Photo Booth.
I'm just going to hide it in a folder, and then I'm just going to wait for... Can you imagine if they actually... I know you're going to hate this, but what if they actually redesigned or like reinvigorated Photo Booth? and then they reintroduced it.
Can they make it exclusive to the flat out fun iPad? Because that would make sense. But it's not pro. It is not pro. It's the least pro app you can ever have. Like, I used that in 2009 on my little white plasticky MacBook, and I was so impressed that I could pretend like that I was in space or in front of the Eiffel Tower or mirror my face. But, dancing hot dog is where it's at.
I basically think there's so much more of these like AI enhanced things like your Snapchat and all that have certainly taken place of it. There's not much wow factor with it. It still can be a bit fun, but yeah, just.
But then they should embrace it. Like, if they're going to update it and do it properly, then do it properly, put it on the flat out fun iPad and make a go of it. But this thing hasn't been updated since iOS 7, and even that update was just makey and flat. No other update. Feature-wise, been the same for years.
Yeah. Oh well. Fingers crossed that you still can delete it come the official launch.
I'll never change from the beta if you can't. And
yeah.
To continue this, like, I can't even believe that there's photo booth for iPad and yet there's not Instagram for iPad. With the iPhone 7 camera, giant viewfinder, and like an amazing screen, yet Instagram has taken this decision that we will not put it on iPad.
I mean, speaking of much smaller screens, of course, I don't know about you, but Instagram for me on Apple Watch has just ceased to function. Yeah,
it's completely broken. They haven't yeah.
Bit of a bummer there, but that wraps up a very all sorts of mixed news in this episode, really. And I think the funny part about this is that typically this is a quieter month, and there's actually been a fair bit to talk about. But that brings us to the end. And of course, if you'd like to get other little updates in between, you can follow us on social media, on Instagram with Apple Slice Podcast, on Twitter with @AppleSliceAU, or Facebook.com/Apple Slice Podcast. And if you want to subscribe,
yeah, you can search Apple Slice in your podcast player. We're on a whole bunch of podcast players, and you can also find us at appleslice.com.au.
Yeah, you can. And well, that pretty much brings us to the end. Do you have anything else to add?
I think we'll be writing to Apple pretty soon. So hopefully I'll be writing to machine-learning@apple.com, and you'll be going to all out on the Nintendo partnership for the suggestion box.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so good. I feel like I want to draw some concepts up. Be like, here, just design this for me.
Sounds pretty cool.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for the very varied conversation, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks. Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.